This dovetails right into what he brought up about
Really?
moving towards what you want. And I'm practicing it, and I get better at it. But I realize that the habitual ways of thinking sometimes cloud my direct feeling of what is it that I want. And for example, with the cruise, I managed to give myself so many logistics of why I couldn't come that I started to feel like it wasn't actually something I wanted. And now I'm here, and it's just so beautiful to meet you. And thank you.
What you're talking about here is the reason, and we've been tiptoeing around it, but we've been talking a lot recently on the Abraham Now broadcasts and spattered a bit here about a process that we are applying emphasis to called the inactive box. Mm-hmm. And its genesis is there's a process for some time that we've called clearing clutter for clarity. Mm-hmm. And the idea of it is get a box, get several boxes, and look around your cluttered space and decide what's important to you to have up close and what you haven't really been enjoying or wanting or needing. Mm-hmm. And the things that are not really adding or enhancing your life experience, just drop them in one of the boxes. But pay attention to the number on the box, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, mm-hmm. and make a record of it some way so that if you do want to get out the red bikini that you haven't worn since 1984, you'll know where it is. Mm-hmm. So it's in box number 47. So then we began talking about all of these beliefs that you've been picking up along your physical trail.
Yes.
And that's what's cluttering mm-hmm. the pathway, yes. so that it's a path of more resistance because it's got these cluttering beliefs on it.
Yes.
And so when you feel negative emotion, that's your indicator that you're in that space looking right at something that's not helpful. So that's a good time to pick it up and put it in a box. Mm-hmm. Not a box that says, out with you forever, mm-hmm. because your beliefs are precious to you, just like your red bikini that you're yes. probably never going to wear again. Mm-hmm. So
I know, yeah.
We're not talking to you. So you put that in a box where you're not condemning it, mm-hmm. and you're not getting rid of it altogether.
Yes.
You're just de-emphasizing it, diffusing it, deactivating it, and making it a little less cluttery mm-hmm. than it was before you decided to make it a little less cluttery. Mm-hmm. And so Esther's been having so much fun and soothing with the box. We've been playing with it for a few months now. And so as a negative emotion comes, she, not always because life moves fast, but often she feels it and then she asks herself the question, oh, what was that? Mm-hmm. What was that I just tripped over?
Yes.
And once she identifies it, then she considers it. Is this a hindering belief? It must be because it didn't feel good when I came across it, mm-hmm. which means what? It means my inner being has a different perspective about this. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean my perspective is wrong, but it means my perspective is different from my inner being's, and therefore it's not the path of least resistance because my inner being has smoothed out my path. Mm-hmm. When I perceive as my inner being perceives, it's a comfortable, pleasant, and can be exhilarating ride. Mm-hmm. And so Esther will sit for a minute, see if she can identify what the subject is or what the issue is, and then she will say to herself in her mind, I'm going to deactivate, I'm going to render inactive my impulse to make more of something that it needs in the box, or I'm going to render inactive my impulse to make assumptions when I don't have all the facts.
Yes.
Or I'm going to render inactive my my propensity to think I know what somebody else is thinking in the box. And little by little by little by little by little, sometimes that issue will show up in 10 different subjects over a few day period. And each time it shows up, if she will take the time to de-emphasize it without even realizing it, because it doesn't happen all at once, it happens gradually, it just dissipates. And it's no longer a hindering factor. And that really is, that's good work. Now you could focus so completely on your desire that you never have a negative thought. You could meditate, and you could go from meditation to appreciation and nothing else in between. But you'd have to live alone. You couldn't be out in the world. You couldn't watch television. You couldn't read a book. Couldn't watch a movie. couldn't call a friend. You would have to really isolate yourself, which is not the idea of life. The idea of life is to move around. Let something happen. Let you and your inner being each come to your conclusion of what you think about it, and then feel the harmony or the discord of that conclusion, and then do something about achieving harmony with your inner being. Yeah?
Beautiful.
Makes perfect sense,
Yes.
doesn't it?
Yes, it sits so well with me. And then that is the way to passion and feeling your passion.
Actually, that's the way to everything. The way to passion is when you know you feel good, when you know, when you're not wondering, should I make this inactive, or should I, in other words, when you know, when something feels really good, milk it for everything it has. Talk about it, get with people who like the same thing, talk with them about it. Just keep goosing it up and goosing it up. Focusing on something that feels good will cause it to gain momentum. Just like focusing on something that feels bad will cause it to gain momentum.
What I tend to do, this is something I just verbalize it. What I tend to do is I look at something I want, and I feel like I know all the pitfalls of when I go down that lane, and then I say, oh no, I know that, so I should...
So what you do, you say, that was then, this is now. I'm remembering wanting it when I was in a different place on the emotional scale.
Yes.
I remember wanting it before I knew about the deactivation or inactivation. That was another place and another time and another me. This time is different.
Yes. Yes.
That was before I knew what I know now. That was before my desire was so well known to me about who I am and what I want. That was before I knew I could be or do or have anything. Because sometimes that's the game that Esther and Tracy play, her daughter. That's the game they play, because sometimes one or the other of them will remind them of a pitfall. And it is so annoying to be reminded of who you used to be.
Yes.
Yeah, I used to be that pain in the butt. I used to worry about that, but I've left that behind with 500 cards that I've dropped in the inactive box. And when you put things in your inactive box, don't take the lid off and paw through it. Creation box, look in there often. Looking through your creation box will enhance that feeling of passion. And looking through your inactive box will stir up old trouble.
Yes. And what you said, when you're doing this over a period of a week and you are aware that certain ways of thinking or feeling penetrate different areas of your life, you just increase your awareness altogether, and that is the expansion.
Because each time it's like peeling the layers of an onion a little bit. Each piece that you remove makes you see all the other pieces more clearly. And consider this. Remember, your inner being knows what you want and where you are in terms of manifestation in relationship with it. So as your inner being notices that you're in a less resistant place than you were before, your inner being will call you right into a situation to help you do that again and again and then again. In other words, your inner being calls you to clarity.
That brings up one very specific
We
thing.
know.
Should I leave that in the vault for now, or can I gently...
Let's talk about it.
Okay. Something that I've practiced for a long time. My question is, am I ready in the vicinity of using this technique on that subject that is so important to me? Or should I leave that altogether and focus on something else, trusting that it is in my vortex?
Well, here's the thing. When you get ready for it, we started to say when it gets ready for you, but that would be incorrect. That was a confusion in our transmission to Esther and in her reception of it. It's ready for you.
Mm-hmm.
The only question is, are you ready for it?
Mm-hmm.
And there's no race to be ready. There's no appropriate or inappropriate time to be ready. Impatience, we talked about that earlier today, will slow it down. And so here's the specific answer to your specific question.
Mm-hmm.
When you can't keep yourself from it, that's when you go that way.
Yeah, I want it so much. I want to give this so much. It feels like this ball of energy that...
Well, when you say, I want to give it so much it hurts,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But when you say, when I think about it, I salivate. When I think about it, I'm exhilarated. And as we've been talking about all day here today, only you can discern what the energy is around that. And your complete approach or intention, where you want to put your emphasis, is upon the soothing, the discord. The words that Esther is finding that profoundly explain what we mean here. It will happen if you stop doing that thing you're doing that's in the way. Mm. But humans want to say, I want to make it happen, I want to make it happen. And we say, just let it happen. And they say, no, I want to make it happen. And we say, just let it happen. And they say, but that's lazy. And I don't get as many marks on the chart. And people won't make monuments about me. And if I just let it happen, letting it happen doesn't seem important enough. And we say, trying to make it happen often keeps you from letting it happen. Mm-hmm. Because there's struggle and strain and effort and all of that downside that is not necessary. Some questions for you. Mm-hmm. Do you accept or believe, does it feel logical to you that you are an extension of source energy?
Completely.
And does it feel logical to you that you didn't just blunder in here? You came with reason and intent.
Yes.
And does it feel logical to you that you came from love?
Oh, yes.
And does it feel logical to you that you knew life is supposed to feel good to you? Mm-hmm. And does it feel logical to you that you are utterly, completely, magnificently worthy?
That's where the little bit of grain sits.
But
yes.
Isn't it logical, given everything else that feels completely logical?
When I look at a little child and the beaming light and the joy, it's absolutely
so
logical.
What's the difference? What's the difference? Why can you believe that about the beaming child but not about you? Beaming child hasn't made all the mistakes I've made. Mm-hmm. That are not considered mistakes by your inner being. So your inner being still sees you as that beaming child. The way you feel about the beaming child is the way your inner being feels about you. No matter what water is under your bridge. That's the way your inner being knows you to be.
Thank you.
Yeah. Enough?
Yes.
Really good. Really good.